Hi and welcome back to another video from Effective Dashboards. In this video we are going to cover the creation of a matrix and the application of different conditional formatting targets for each category in the matrix. Okay, so let's get started. So here's a matrix we've got here, and we've got the departments along the rows, and we've got along the top here, each of these columns are different categories of types of maintenance. Okay, so we've got safety critical maintenance, we've got environmentally critical maintenance, production and routine, and we've got a total there. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to assign some conditional formatting. First of all, we want to be able to assign some conditional formatting, which we can, but we want to have a different target for each one of these categories. Okay, so there is a way you can do that with some DAX, and I've got a course that covers it, but it's quite complicated and it needs a little bit of an understanding and a build up to how to use some DAX. But with a small amount of DAX and a few additional measures, I'm going to show you how you can actually go and achieve this. So just to show you the problem, if we go into the normal conditional formatting here, and we go and add a background, say, and we can see that we've got a background here that's been automatically populated with a conditional formatting, and it's just based on a range. Okay, so this is the color scheme, but if you want to put some rules in place, so for the example, say we want to highlight anything that's over 20, okay, anything that's over 10 even. So what we can do is greater than or equal to 10, we can create a rule based on backlog count here, and the number is 10, and less than max. Okay, so you just type in max here for maximum, and we want to highlight that. Hold on, just move this up a little bit. We want to highlight that as a red color. Okay, so let's just go and quickly stick a red in here. Okay, so anything that's over 10 and less than max we want to be red, and then we put that in here and we can see everything that's above 10. However, in this scenario here, we've got different targets for each one of these categories. Okay, so safety's got a target of, say, 0 or 10, let's say 10. Environmental might be 10 as well, because they're really both important in the legal issues, legislative issues. Easy enough for some people to say. However, if we go into production, we can probably live with maybe 50, and with routine we can maybe live with 100. Okay, so we want that conditional formatting to be based on those values. Right, so what I'm going to do is, at the moment, all I've done is create the rows as department, the columns as work criticality description, which is along the top here, and we've got this measure here, backlog work. Okay, so if I hover over this, it's actually called backlog count. So that is the measure that we're using. However, what we need to do is we need to create an individual measure for each one of these, and that's the key thing. It's really just as simple as that. So we need to create a measure that filters on safety work, a measure that filters on environmental work, production work, and routine work. So let me show you what I've done here. There's a couple of ways you can do it. I've just used calculate. So what I've done, I'll just make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. I've created a simple measure here where we've used the calculate statement, and the calculate statement essentially overwrites or adds additional filters, an additional filter context. So instead of having drilling safety, we're going to just basically have drilling, and we're going to tell it, well, this is production, let's go to the safety one since that's the first one. Safety, here we go. So in here, we're actually going to add in two parameters to calculate. The first parameter here is we're going to filter this table and filter this value here, work criticality description equals safety. So the table that we're going to look at and we're going to pass to the calculate function is going to be purely filtered on the work order data table where the work criticality description is equal to safety. Okay, so that's all we're going to look at when we go and then apply this measure here, which is backlog count. Okay, so it's as simple as that. It's a really simple description of calculator. That's quite a powerful formula. I will create another video on this for in the future. But for just now, if you're not used to calculate, you can simply just use this formula as it is. And then we'll use the backlog count formula, which we are currently using at the moment. Okay, so we've already created a backlog count formula. It's in here, and it is just filtering all of the rows in the work order data table where backlog equals 1. Okay. Now there is another way we could do this. I don't want to get offer up too many options, but we could also just, where backlog equals 1, and we can just put another filter in here that filters it to say and also is equal to safety. But just for this example here, I've used the calculate statement. Right, so let's go and build it up. So I'm going to take a copy of this, and we're just going to build it up at the bottom here. So I'm going to take out this one here, and I'm going to start adding in these measures that I've created. So the first one is going to be for safety. So it's safety backlog count, and let's add it into values. And we can see it building up. So we can see here that it's exactly the same as the one above. The next, but we've actually added an individual measure, and that's the key thing here. That's going to allow us to add in that different conditional formatting based on the measures, different measures rather than one conditional formatting for the single measure that's used. So I would only, as I'm doing this, just a few comments, I would only do this for a set of categories where you know, first of all, you know the number of categories is going to be. So we know that there's 4 categories here: safety, environment, production, and routine. And you don't want it to be massive. You know, over 6 or 7 is probably going to look a bit big. So just bear that in mind. So we can see that the department has been, so this is the next thing we've got to do. So in the columns, we've still got this criticality description. However, we've already baked the criticality description into each of those measures. So we can get rid of that. Okay. And then the next one is going to be production. And then finally, we're going to add in the routine backlog count. And these numbers should tie up nicely with the ones at the top there. There we go. Yep, it's all the same. So I'll just quickly change the description here and routine. Okay, so we've now got more or less a duplicate of the ones that are above. However, we don't have this grand total. Okay, so we can't total up these measures. I've went in and explored it, and you don't seem to be able to add in a total at the row level. You can at the column level, which is fine, but not at the row level. So what we do there is we pull back in this measure, and that becomes our total. So we just pull back in the backlog hours, and that becomes the total along at the end there. So we don't have columns, so that backlog hours isn't being spread across different columns that will be generated by the different, basically the different values of that actual that category. So for example, work criticality description is not a column. So all this is going to do is show the total for each one of these. And because this backlog hours is simply only filtering on work orders that are backlog, in backlog, the planned hours that are in backlog, then it's going to give us the total for this particular department here. Okay, so the filter context is generated by this department here for these backlog hours here. Actually it's backlog count. Thought it looked a bit big, but it's the same principle applies. There we go. Okay, so now we've got this duplicated. We're going to add some conditional formatting, and that is dead straightforward. So we're going to go into the conditional formatting option here, and now you can see we have got the different measures that are available for us to add conditional formatting and different conditional formatting values. So let's go and add these in. I'm going to go for, rather than a background color, I'm going to go for an icon, because I think that's a little bit less, it's just a bit nicer. If you're looking at a range of values and you want to see a heat map, then that's great. But for this example here, I'm going to just use the icons. And I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to get rid of these. I'm going to change that to this little red circle here because I quite like that. And if anything is greater than 10, the number 10, and less than, now we're going to say max again, and you need to make sure you change this to a number. Now Power BI will turn that back to a percentage for some reason, but we need to put it in as a number to begin with. So we've got the rules. It's based on the field safety critical backlog count. That's important because that's the measure we've generated. We can play a bit with this if we want to, but in general, if we click that, we can see that one is above 10. We want to do the same for the environment. So all we do is, or let's do production. And for production, we want to change this slightly. And perhaps we want to make this one greater than 50. So all we're going to do is, if the value is greater than 50 and less than or equal to max number, then it's going to be that. Just make sure it's there, it's fine. And here we can see. Okay, so I'll just pause this for a second and I'll add the other conditional formatting into each one of these. Okay, so I've added it in here and we can see that we have got these values here. So this one is above 10, this one is above 10, this one's above 50, and this one is above 100. Okay, so each one of these could and does have a different, well, these two are the same, but we've got the ability now to add different rules to each of our measures. Finally, what I want to do is just a little piece of formatting here. The total, it is quite nice to see this total in bold, and we don't have the functionality to bold that text. But what we can do is we go to field formatting, and we can choose total, and we can go in and we can change the background color and just make it slightly darker. I mean, that does help. And then just remember to go and apply to header and apply to total there, and that just it just highlights the fact that that's the total and draws your attention to there, but this is where we want to actually be focused on. Okay, so hopefully you found this useful. If you want to learn more about conditional formatting, then see below I've got a complete course on setting up a KPI and conditional formatting, or setting up a KPI management system, and there's a lot of conditional formatting in there. And this will be part of it as well, and I'll show you another method for getting after that. It's a little bit more complicated, however gives us better flexibility. And yeah, if you found this useful, then give us a thumbs up. That would be much appreciated. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest videos, I release one around about every week, then click the subscribe button and press the wee bell to get a notification whenever there's a new video released. Okay, thanks again for listening and or watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video.